Alrighty, folks, did the government shutdown have an impact on transactions? We are starting to get October numbers. Are they going to be disappointing? Are they going to be a surprise strength? Let's find out that. And of course, we will talk 50-year mortgages in a high cost of living area like King County of Seattle, where prices could be $1 million. I couldn't imagine a 50-year mortgage on $1 million house, but hey, we will get that in a minute. But first, Beth, how you doing?
Yeah, doing great. Thanks for having me back. Always a highlight of my week. And yeah, we got our October numbers, and that October bump we were hoping for, not really. It's been just kind of lumbering along. I think your prediction of August being about the trough,
correct,
does seem to be correct in our areas. This is Greater Seattle area for those that don't know. But it doesn't mean that it just spikes from there. It means it just
never said that.
Lumbers along, and you never did say that, right? But I just want to make sure people are clear. Like, a bottom doesn't mean that it's taking off like a rocket. Like, it's going to be kind of blah for a while now. And you and I, we've been through a few of these cycles. That's just kind of how it happens. You might get a little bit of a burst here and there, and then it settles back down. And we saw that. So one thing that's interesting for October is that our inventory is down month over month.
Oh my God, really?
But it's still up 33% year over year. And so we do have a lot more inventory in 2025 than we had in 2024. And we are seeing also prices up 3.85% year over year. But I thought the most interesting thing about that was when I looked into the different parts of King County. So we've got the city of Seattle, which was up 8%. And whoa, city of Seattle, interesting.
Right.
Their median price is closer to around $1 million or so. Whereas on the east side, where I am, more or less, is a higher price area. And we are flat, zero growth from a year ago. 155 exactly in 2024, 155 exactly in 2025. So in some ways that could be good news for us. It's like, okay, all right, prices are not dropping. But in my little sub-market of my little area, it's this very, very tech-heavy area. It's down. Prices are down 8% year over year. And I thought that was quite interesting, the swing. So the older, smaller homes in Seattle doing well, prices are lower over there. I mean, it's all relative, right? And then over here in the east side, prices down. And I think part of what as somebody with boots on the ground, you kind of got to look at why would that be? And I think in our case, it's the higher priced inventory has been languishing for a while. And if we have fewer 2 million plus sales, earlier in the year and last year, it was not unusual at all to see a lot of $2 million plus sales. It was pretty normal. Now I'm seeing a lot of that in my little neck of the woods. Inventory is taking a lot longer to sell, and there's been some pretty big price drops on that. So I think that is what is driving it down. That, and we also, so buildable land is very, very limited in King County, probably like some areas of California and other areas where it's extremely limited by regulation and just the geology of the area. Geography, the fact that we've got lakes and mountains and things that make it so you can't build in certain areas, and restricted growth. So there are a few pockets where new home builders have been rolling out these plats, these projects of new homes. And in that area where prices went down is where I'm seeing more of that, because there's a surplus of these mid-tier homes that I'm sure when they started building that plat, they figured it was just a slam dunk, but now they were having difficulty selling those. And we've been seeing, sometimes 10 plus homes available in a community, which in our area is a lot, and that can drag prices down. And then the resale homes that we were selling, my team and I were selling just a few months ago for a certain price, say around 1.5, are now selling for 1.35, even 1.3. Big drops. So those are for the subdivision homes that are just more common. There's more inventory for those. I'd be curious to hear from other people around the country what they're seeing with the new home developments and how that's impacting the sale of the new homes and the resale, and how that might be potentially drawing prices down. But that's the good old supply and demand that's been around forever, right? So it's just there's more supply. Buyers are being selective. They're getting the lower prices. They're getting credits. They're getting things like that. I know a lot of these builders are offering rate buy downs, great incentives to use their lender and to use their, you get free upgrades, you get. And I know that they tend to do price drops as a last resort, but I've been seeing more actual price drops in these new home communities, which we used to not see, because they would do that as, you drop the price on one house, you're dropping it for the entire build. So that's what I'm seeing. And I'd be curious to get your take on what you make of all that.
Yeah, I think there's a lot in there. So we'll do the new home stuff first. Absolutely, supply and demand is undefeated. In fact, I talked about it this morning. We're seeing markets like Phoenix, Denver, and others have real rent drops. Why? Because they rolled out a lot of apartments. It's like supply and demand 101. Why are we surprised by this? So if you do have an area where there's a bunch of home builders and they're rolling out stuff, they're having a hard time, right? Home builders today are averaging 10% credits, right? That's buying down. That's free upgrades. That's no lot fees. I mean, it's whatever it is. And then to your point, they're cutting prices as a last resort. But what's happening is it's really hard to compete as an existing home with a new home, right? For the first time in decades, the average or the median new home price is cheaper than existing. That doesn't normally happen.
That's bizarre.
Right?
Yeah,
it's bizarre, right?
Top tier.
Exactly. So again, this is supply and demand 101. And builders are doing what they can to move inventory to stay liquid. Some smaller builders are frankly going bust. They're going out of business. And this is what we should expect. But here's the deal. This won't last long. Builders have stopped the pace over profit, right? That was a phrase from Lennar's CFO or CEO about a year ago. They're not doing that anymore. They are slamming on the brakes. And I don't know, 6 months from now, this new home inventory will be gone, and they'll be right back to where they were. So that's the thought on new home.
If they're not rolling out new, then we're back to where we were, where it's like that a lot in my area where we don't have it's not, like I said, it's not unlimited, the space to build. So every once in a while they get some property and they roll, but it takes years for all this to happen. Like this permitting and all of everything that goes into it started years ago. So if they're slamming the brakes on new builds, we'll be feeling it in the future.
It'll be a huge air pocket, huge monstrous.
Yeah, like remember back in 2008, 9, 10, those years, there was all that building and then it all stopped, and we're still feeling that now with the shortage of homes. 15 years later, it's just it's something that lasts for a long time. So not that this is going to be of that magnitude, but we will, I think, feel ripples of that.
You'll feel it
quite some time, and
you'll feel it.
And with the new apartment construction, will be, I think the brakes will slam on that if rents are going down and the demand's not there and the cost to build is still through the roof. They're not going to do it. It's business. Yeah,
it's just business. Yeah, they're not a charity. Exactly. So let's get back to October numbers. So inventory is up 33%, more options. Price again is up 3%, which is going to drive the doom.
Yeah, we're back at $997, and we've been bumping around this $1 million median for years now. We first saw it in about June of 2022 or so when rates were still low, and then they dropped for a bit when rates went up, and then we've been kind of going around, and it just seems to be that threshold is hard to break. And not that I'm in any big hurry for prices to surge or anything like that, but it's been just kind of right around that million or so for the longest time. It go a little under, a little above. Yeah. Our months of inventory is another metric that I watch. And so we're at 2.29 months of inventory. Still
That's
low.
a lot for you. Yeah, slow by standards.
But we've dipped as low. So in the springtime is usually when it dips around, it gets to around 1 month or sometimes a little less. That's when our busiest time of the year is. And we are a little up. We're down month over month, but it's been around 2.5 to now 2.29 for a while. And what I'm seeing now is we're seeing that between now and the end of the year, we won't see a whole lot of new inventory. There were barely any new listings this last week. Almost nothing rolling out. Buyers are going to start checking out for the holidays.
Correct.
But The ones that are savvy will go in there and find the deals, right? Find the opportunities. There's still sellers out there who want to close by the end of the year. This is prime time for that. You can be the one to get while the getting is good, so to speak. So
yeah, one of the things I did want to ask was about transactions. So what was the transaction count for October? Was that up over September, up year on year? Do you have that?
Yeah, I do. So for closed sales, we're at about this year was 1,665 and last year it was 1,815. So we're down 8.26% in closed transactions. So
transactions down year on year. Again,
transactions down, which is kind of what we've been seeing all year.
Yeah.
It'll be interesting to see what happens next year. I have a lot of questions. We don't know. I feel like in my area, I feel like the fact that these layoffs may be having more of an impact here than it may in other areas.
It's the psychology. Yeah, no, I think tech heavy spots got to be careful, right?
Yeah.
You get those 15,000 layoffs at Amazon or whatever it was, then Microsoft, and consumers are really simple. They're going to take a pause when they're scared or nervous.
Yeah, and it was about 2,000 or so here locally, but that's a lot.
That's a lot.
And if people aren't, I'm still seeing people out there. People are buying, and don't get me wrong. Like we're selling houses.
Yeah.
I know my team and I, we had a great October. There's still people out there that are moving. The market never stops. So,
totally agree.
So just take that with a grain of salt. But at the same time, it's like people are not, there's enough people out there that are feeling that hesitation that I think is going to have some impact on our market for some time. That probably is going to keep the prices from escalating at a rapid rate like we saw for so many years.
Yeah. Very, very cool. Well, let's switch to the 50-year mortgage, right? We talked to 50-year mortgage a lot around the country the last few days, but in a market like King County, where the median price is over $1 million or $1 million, is a 50-year mortgage even an option? I mean, that's a hell of a jumbo loan. I mean, what are your thoughts on 50-year mortgage?
Yeah. So I've been giving this a lot of thought. My first thought was, yeah, why not? And so I'll tell you both sides of the coin that I'm looking at here. So it's like most people, very few people see a 30-year mortgage all the way from first payment to the last payment. It's extremely uncommon.
True.
They tend to refi at some point when rates go down, or they sell, one or the other. And so if you look at it in that way, for a lot of folks, it's going to be just about a payment. However, listening to you and others, I'm thinking, is the payment really going to be that much lower? My first thought when somebody says 50-year mortgage, that's so much higher, longer than the 30-year that you think the price would be way lower. And if it's going to be, say, $1,000 lower a month, like, well, yeah, everyone's going to jump on that. But if it's a couple hundred, $200-$300, even $400, it's like, is that really worth it? For some people that are looking at payment is literally the only thing that ever matters, and they'll just pay. You might as well make it interest only, like just pay interest only for the life of the loan.
Exactly.
I think that there's a place for it, like there is with adjustable rates, but I think there's danger to it, just like adjustable rates. I don't think I would get a 50-year mortgage. I'm looking to refinance out of we'll call it kind of a BRRRR in the next few months. And I don't think I would do that. If it's a higher rate, I'm sure it will be. That's one thing we don't really know yet. But you always pay for, if you're going to have a longer term, you're going to have a higher
term.
rate.
Pay for term. Yep.
And if it doesn't give people enough of a benefit, I don't think that many will. I don't think it'll make a difference. If it makes a difference between we qualify to buy a home versus not, like if you're a first time home buyer and the 50-year mortgage, and if you're a first time home buyer and the average age is now 40, it's like you still want to be paying on that when you're 90. I mean, I guess like that payment will feel probably almost free in 50 years if you still have that house in 50 years, which is highly unlikely, but
it's
and
just,
to your point, you're talking about the retirees. Like I've got parents that have paid off homes. My mom, wouldn't be able to have a home if she had a payment because she doesn't have an income.
No chance.
And I kind of equate it to like, well, yes, if they had that payment, that would be bad at that age. But also if they were renting, it probably would be worse. So there's that. It's like, it's better than renting, I think. I still think it's better to own your home long-term than not. Yeah. But that said, I'm not like jumping up and down for joy for the 50-year mortgage. I'm kind of like, I don't think that's going to be I don't think that's going to solve anything. If it did go down, if your payments were going down 500, 1,000, I mean, it's just going to depend, of course, on all your loan amount and everything else. But like, I think if that happened, prices would definitely go. All that would happen is prices would go up.
That's the problem. Is if the 50-year becomes the standard in very quick order, we're talking 18 months. Prices will recalibrate to a 50-year mortgage, and we're right back where we are today, being unaffordable. The only people that win are banks and investors. It's just that simple.
For sure, investors will win because your appreciation will calibrate. And you'll go up
10%.
It'll make it harder ultimately for the first-time home buyers, which I think is what that is supposed to try to help. I don't think it really helped with the lock-in effect either. I don't think it's going to make enough difference. But the I wonder back in the day, who was it? FDR who rolled out the 30-year mortgage, according to that post I saw. How much did that? I mean, your 50-year spreadsheet doesn't go back that far, but and we're like, how much did that? Like, that must have really made values explode.
No, it had to. It just had to. I mean, that's just that's the thing about real estate. It's always been a payment-based system. And then the crazy thing now is I'm seeing posts around having a 15-year car loan.
I'm no,
really?
That I think is more harmful, because at least with the house, you have an asset that's going to hopefully not go down in value, or at least if it does, not much for long. But the car is
that's just nuts. You're just going to be carrying a car loan forever.
In 15 years, probably. I can't imagine. So I don't know. I'm one of those people. I'm pretty car payment averse, but that's just how I've always been. But
me too.
I know for a lot of people, if you're going to buy $100,000 truck or something, which is just a regular truck now, it's like, how are you? It's just, I don't know how that wouldn't. I don't see how that makes sense for a bank. I don't understand vehicle financing, but it's like, isn't that a huge risk for the bank to have a lien on a worthless asset?
You would think.
At some point it's going to be worthless, right? And they can't sell, because if they don't have the equity, I don't know, you roll that negative equity into, what they do? They roll it into
they roll it into the next purchase.
It sounds like a recipe for catastrophe.
Disaster.
So
couldn't agree more.
I'm not a fan whatsoever. Please don't do that, people. Just buy a more modest car, get a used car, get something you can afford. Like, just say no to the madness. I think that's crazy.
You're amazing, Beth. How can people find you?
Yeah, people can find me at bethtraversogroup.com. You can Google my name and find me all over. And I'm also in the school community as well, where I love to talk about investing in real estate. So
thank you so much, Beth. Have a great day.
Thank you. You too.